Grass, Fire, and Water have been the de facto type trio for starter Pokemon since the very beginning. But what if that hadn't been the case? We have explored this concept using the Kanto and the Johto starters, so today we are moving on to the Hoenn starters. Maybe it is a bit of nostalgia bias talking, as my first Pokemon game was Sapphire, but these three are some of my absolute favorites. And if you want to be my favorite, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. It really does help. So to start us off, we have the Trico line, which I opted to give the Steel type. So allow me to introduce Zinco, the Metal Gecko Pokemon, who I worked with Trevenart to create. I also worked with them on the rest of the designs for this video, so make sure to check them out, link is in the description. With Trico originally being based on the leaf-tailed gecko, I thought a clever way to play into that would be to reference Gold Leaf. Gold that has been hammered into extremely thin sheets that is used in the process of gilding. Some leaf-tailed geckos have this more gold coloration, which is simply gorgeous and plays well into our concept. We tried to mix in some more pointed features to help sell the steel typing as well, with Zinco's tail looking like a little dagger while still being a bit leaf-like. As with the previous videos, I tried to maintain parts of the original names of these evolution lines, or make them have a similar cadence. So Zinco is a mix of the metal zinc and gecko. While zinc is more silvery than gold, it still works as a metal and maintains that E sound from Trico. Zinco used their grass type-like appearance to trick types that are super effective against grass into attacking them. It will then use its razor-sharp tail to deliver a devastating counter. This tactic does not really work that well on fire types though. At level 16, Zinco evolves into Silvile, a steel fire type. Yes, I have finally mixed in a type from the original trio into one of these starters. Trust me, it fits the concept, isn't the Pokemon's original type, and if I limit myself to not using any of those types at all, what I can do with these starter type swaps becomes more limiting. Anyway, as Grovyle was the first to learn its formerly signature move, Leaf Blade, Silvile turns the blade part up to 11, having a pair of blades on its hands and tail, and one on its head. Silvile uses these blades in a weird series of movements that some have called a dance. A swords dance, if you will. This dance with danger and the shape of their blades are a reference to a form of Peruvian dance called Danza de las Tijeras, also known as the scissors dance. The dancer will do incredibly dexterous and expressive dance moves all the while holding scissors. These seemingly magical feats have led some to believe that the dancers have made some form of pact with the devil, calling them the dancer in the devil's house. Which leads us perfectly into Silvile's evolution, Coboltile, the wildfire Pokemon. So I've been kind of hiding a secret since we introduced Zinco. This line is based on a specific type of leaf-tailed gecko, one with devilish inclinations, called the satanic leaf-tailed gecko. This demonic lizard was what I based this entire concept around. As this Pokemon evolves, you can see it descend into a hellish fiend, a demon lord, if you will. This descent to darkness not only reflects Satan being a fallen angel, but refers to Creep, which is not only a hit song by Radiohead, but in material science it refers to the deformation of a material over time due to long exposure to certain stresses. Stresses like heat, which is one of the most severe. Silvile's scissors become more like claws with Coboltile, and its tail, while emulating the tree from Sceptile, also looks like a weird, deformed blade, like the many oddly shaped blades of demons and devils across popular media. Coboltile's name comes from the element cobalt, which most people think of as blue, but as a metal is silvery. There is also a crystal known as aerithite, or red cobalt, as it is a cobalt arsenate mineral and is associated with silver, just like Silvile is with Coboltile. Its fire typing obviously refers to Hell's association with fire. And speaking of, Coboltile can superheat its blade-like claws, unleashing a powerful bitter blade. That power not only comes from its infernal design, but its ability, sharpness, which makes so much sense for this of all Pokemon to have, and would boost the damage and amount of HP drained by Bitter Blade, making this Pokemon a truly demonic force to be reckoned with. From there, we move on to a completely different note with Torchic, who I decided to give the Fairy type. So here is Archic, the chick Pokemon. This little cutie is inspired by the tale of Chicken Little, with its poofy cloud-like feathers looking like the clouds in the sky that Chicken Little believed was falling. The pattern on its face takes a note from the Sobble playbook and looks like tears. The little head feather will sometimes land on Archic's head, making it think that something fell on its head from the sky, subsequently making it panic and run around like a chicken with their head cut off. Or I guess in this case, a chicken with their head screwed on wrong? Either way, at level 16, Archic evolves into Ambroskin, the young bird Pokemon, a fairy flying type. Ambroskin has matured from its previous stage, beginning to find its way through the sky after acquiring its new larger and flight-capable wings. The poofy cloud-like elements of Archic have transformed into more of an outfit reminiscent of an 80s teenager, poofy jacket, scrunchie and all, referencing coming-of-age movies like Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, and 16 Candles. Man, Molly Ringwald really had a chokehold on 80s teen movies. and the color pink. Anyway, this all comes together in Ambroskin being the teen stage of evolution, but the white aspects of this design also refer to doves, which are typically a sign of peace, freedom, and love, like the innocence before becoming an adult. Speaking of, at level 36, Ambroskin evolves into Blaziken, the sky Pokemon. Now that we've reached the final stage of this line, I guess it's about time I explain the names, huh? They all take a portion from something celestial or heavenly. Archik comes from Archangel, Blaziken comes from Heavenly Bliss, and Ambroskin comes from Ambrosia, said to be a mythical food or drink of the Greek gods, which confers immortality to them. It was also brought to the gods by doves. As you can no doubt tell, Blaziken is based on an angel, but more specifically celestials from Dungeons & Dragons. As you can see, Blaziken adopts some of those more gold elements from this race of heavenly beings. It also kind of came out looking like the White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which wasn't intentional, but as an MMPR fan, I'll take it. Rest in peace, JDF. Reaching its full potential, Blaziken now protects the skies and its inhabitants. So if the sky were to ever fall, it would be right there to stop it. It will use its signature move Celestial Strike to take down those who stand in its way. A base 90 special move that does fairy and flying damage calculated pretty much exactly how Flying Press does. Cloud9 feels like a fitting ability for this Pokemon given its lore and inspiration, but I could also see Serene Grace working too. Well, I know you like Mudkips, first I wanted to talk about the type I picked for it. With Kanto, we did the Ice Steel Ground type trio, and with Johto, we did the Flying Rock Fighting trio. So for Hoenn, I wanted to do something a bit different and use an incomplete type triangle. 3 types that have some connection to each other, but isn't necessarily a perfect matchup of strengths and weaknesses. So for Mudkip, I picked the Dragon type. Steel resists it, and Fairy is super effective against it. But Dragon also resists Cobaltile's partial fire typing, and I have another trick up my sleeve for this line. Anyway, with all this said, here is Lindkip, the dragonfish Pokemon. This adorable fellow is based on a type of fish called the Senegal Bichir, also known as the dragonfish. They are incredibly reminiscent of the types of fish Mudkip was based on, and with a name like that, it was a definite must to base Lindkip on it. Lindkip's name comes from Lindworm, a type of serpentine dragon usually depicted with 2 arms in the front and no legs. Despite being purely dragon type, Lindkip spend most of their time in the waters of swamps and marshes. And while we're on the topic of marshes, at level 16, Lindkip evolves into Marshtier, a dragon poison type. I told you I had a trick up my sleeve. Poison is of course strong against fairy types, but steel is immune to it. Unless this line had corrosion as an ability, which it does. I also did something a bit different with the naming here. Usually I replace the element of the name of the Pokemon, like Torchic to Archik or Trico to Zinco, but for this one, the marsh part of its name already fits the swamp dwelling concept super well. The tier part of its name comes from another kind of dragon, the Amphitheer or Amphitheer, which is another type of serpentine dragon, but instead this one has wing arms. Marshtier build up poison in their bright purple stomach by eating the local flora and fauna in their boggy home. They tend to keep to themselves as they are quite foul-smelling to other Pokemon. He's just a stinky little guy, who becomes a big stinky guy at level 36 when it evolves into Swampent. Now at the final stage, it actually becomes a Lindworm. Legs? Where we're going, we don't need legs. Its type, dark green coloration, and swamp habitat are meant to reference 2 types of dragons found within D&D. The toxic green dragons and the sinister, lonesome, marsh-dwelling black dragons. Both are capable of expelling some form of toxic breath. One poison gas and the other acid. There is also such a dragon found within French myth called the Guivere, a dragon-like serpent that possesses venomous breath. That noxious odor from Marshtier has developed into Swampent's breath, which is toxic enough to severely poison even the toughest Steel-type Pokemon. This is actually their signature move, Toxic Breath, a base 80 special Poison-type move with a 20% chance to badly poison the target. Move over, Naganadel and Dragalge, we've got a new Dragon Poison type to reign supreme. The group theme may have been a bit more obvious than others in this series. They represent different realms outside the Terrestrial realm, aka our realm. The Infernal realm, aka Hell with Cobaltile, the Celestial realm, aka Heaven with Blaziken, and the Realm of Magic with Swampent, though it could also refer to the D&D Terrestrial Realm as you can find dragons there, which is pretty much the same thing as the Magical Realm though. There was also a more subtle group theme of gold throughout these designs, with the Zinco line representing yellow gold, the Archik line representing white or rose gold, while also having some yellow gold elements, and the Lindkip line being dragons that hoard gold. They could also represent black gold, aka oil, being a toxic substance to animals much like that line is to Pokemon. Another small thing I did was swap around the fan-theorized themes for these starters. Cobaltile having blades or scissors as a weapon theme like the water starters were thought to, Swampant being a dragon like the Chinese zodiac firestarter theory, and Blaziken being based on an extinct animal, the Archaeopteryx. Which I know is a bit of a cop-out given birds are descended directly from dinosaurs, but it still works. And that's what a differently typed starter trio might look like. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.